Travelers on the Omnibus occasionally touches on mature subject matter with mature language. As such, audience discretion is advised.
Welcome to Travelers on the Omnibus, the podcast where we discuss what is the greatest duel in Star Wars history and why is it R2 and Yoda fighting over a flashlight in The Empire Strikes Back. My name is Brady Davis.
I'm Jody.
I'm Ethan Skinner.
I'm James.
I got the visual.
Wait, he's the second? You're the wait, no, pause. You're the second,
No.
Ethan. What happened to the first one?
I was gonna say I second his answer.
Oh, okay.
Okay, yeah.
You need to enunciate
As
better.
soon as you said that, every other duel vanished from my brain.
That's because it covers them all up.
He's just hitting them with a stick.
Yeah, mine.
Mine.
Oh, God.
Mark Hamill's
They
just
know each other.
yeah.
Yes.
They have history, and he
Yeah.
still beats the shit out of him.
It's even funnier in retrospective now that
That's how you know they're true friends.
Yeah.
Skywalker's like, what is happening?
Yeah, well, like every other part of Star Wars, Yoda is so fucking serious. And this one time he's like, I'm just going to fuck with this kid
Right.
and act like a weirdo.
He's just so old. He's senile
To
at that
be
point.
fair, he's been out in a swamp all alone for like 20 years.
Yeah, that would do it. That
Right.
would do it too. Yeah.
Like, who knows what type of marsh viruses he has?
Yes.
he drinks too much marsh water.
yeah,
He can now see music.
in Return of the Jedi, he did not die of old age. He died of swamp chlamydia.
Yeah. Speaking of swamp chlamydia, Ethan, what have you been up to?
The world is ending.
Oh,
Well,
least-
yeah, you have swamp chlamydia. Apparently, we've established it.
At least South Mississippi is almost ending.
it's all almost ending.
I just wish it happened sooner.
We had a wildfire in like the neighborhood. It was
Yeah, Ethan has nothing to talk about. So, like an old man, he's going to talk about.
How to shit the world has gone.
Yeah.
I mean, we got
Kids these
wildfires
days.
here. There's an earthquake over near Japan.
Yeah. Well, there's always an earthquake in Japan.
Yeah.
It's like
Quite
right
often.
on a fault line. They deserve it.
There's an ongoing fire from California.
There's
I don't
always
even
a
remember
fire in
how long ago.
California.
Yeah.
There's not always a fire in Ocean Springs, though.
This is true.
Yeah.
This is true.
150 acres.
Yeah.
That just now got
I
contained.
feel for anybody who had to deal
Yeah,
with that
that sucks
personally.
ass.
Of course. Just hope that everyone's safe.
Mm-hmm.
But
100%.
yeah,
I hope that an idiot didn't cause it, but probably did because I mean,
They're
if you're a betting man,
I don't
To be
know.
fair-
That's what you go with.
We hit 100 without a heat index the last 3 days in a row.
yeah, it's dry as
Yeah.
fuck out here.
Yeah,
I
the
mean,
heat
that is
index
true.
today was 118 degrees.
yeah,
Regardless of wildfire, someone's going to die of a heat stroke eventually.
you're talking like nobody hasn't. Yeah. So welcome to the weather report. Later on, we'll have today's number. That's a David Lynch reference.
The weather outside is fire, and the number is 18. Let me tell you a little bit about Blue Velvet and how he wanted to crawl back in that woman's pussy because she was his mother.
I had 2 Snickers and a Coke. Like, all right.
And back to you.
All right,
You
David
said
Lynch.
Eraserhead is your most spiritual movie. Yes. Would you like to elaborate on that? No.
No. Why would I?
It's my favorite David Lynch interview.
Out of all the auteurs, he's so fucking weird.
He is the weirdest. So besides your old man rant, what is that it?
Yes.
Okay, cool. Jody, what have you been doing?
I've been playing Star Realms.
I was really dismissive with that. Okay, cool. I apologize.
No, my life was boring this week. Okay.
You said it, not me.
My life is boring most weeks. But anyway, I was playing Star Realms with my buddy Phil over Steam. If you're not aware of what that game is, it is a deck building game where, like most deck building games, you start with like 7 cards that have a value of 1. And then 7, or I think in Star Realms it's 8. 8 cards with a value of 1, and then 2 cards with a damage of 1.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And both players start with a life total of 50. And you draw your hand at the beginning of your turn. If you go first, you only draw 3 cards because you have the option of buying a card first, which usually you won't be buying one of the cards in the main line, which there are 5 or 6. I keep forgetting because each deck builder has like a variant of either 5 or 6 in the main.
This is the
Factions,
game.
I think it's 6. It's an even number because
there's the factions. There's the blob. There's the
machine people.
the machine. I think it's 4. I think it's 4 factions.
Then.
There's blue, white, green, and red.
Yeah.
So, but like the cards that are like laid out in the main,
like the marketplace.
the main tableau,
Yeah. It's
is
a
like
deck builder game for anybody who's familiar with
5
that
or
term.
6.
If this is like the game that has Hero Realms as like the reskin of it,
Yes.
then it's 5. It's
Okay.
5 in the
And then
tableau.
unlike most deck building games, when you
They didn't combine. So that later on there was an expansion where they combined them, but it was just different combinations of 2 altogether.
yeah, there was also like 2 or 3 expansions of just Star Realms. So it's a really fun game. You can actually it's free to play, free to download, free to play against an AI.
Yeah.
But
I
if
have
you,
that version on my phone.
if you want to play against an actual opponent that's not in the room with you, because you can do that too. The base game is $5, which is, I mean, if you're going to play it a lot, I think that's worth it for sure.
$5 is not bad for like a board game style
Right.
game on like Steam or your phone or something like that.
Also, I've been playing. We've been playing Fortnite together and UFC 4, having a good time with that. There is currently an actual Humble Bundle that has it's. I think it's $18. And the main games that I remember that are included are digital versions of Wingspan,
yeah.
Dune Imperium,
Terraforming Mars.
and I want to say Scythe is in there.
Scythe is in there.
And that's like the 4 main games, and there's some expansion stuff too.
Yeah, and there's like a bunch of expansions for it. I saw that. I have most of those. Is the only reason why I'm like, man, I don't.
The only one of those I don't have is Dune Imperium.
Dune Imperium. There's some other things there that I don't have that I was interested in. I can't remember off the top of my head, but it's just that there and some of those I don't have some of the expansions that were in there.
Right.
And it would probably, if I total it up, it would probably still be worth it. I was thinking about it
because like when it's not on sale, any of those games are typically around $20 without any expansions.
Yeah.
So you can buy Dune Imperium, or you can buy Dune Imperium in like 6 other games.
Yeah.
So I'm probably gonna get that tomorrow when I get paid, because that's a really great deal.
Yeah.
If you don't have any of that stuff,
If you get it, we could play online because I have most of those games. I don't have Dune Imperium.
you have Steam. You do it Steam.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. I'll give you my gamer tag for it, and definitely.
I haven't played them in forever, so, but
I think that's fine. One great thing about playing board games and card games on Steam is just the game taking care of all the upkeep and everything, shuffling the decks for you.
That's why I love playing Sentinels of the Multiverse on my phone, because it has all the bullshit upkeep. It just does.
It just takes care of it. Cuts your game time down. So much.
Yeah, and you can. It makes it where you basically play like 4-handed. Solo.
Right.
But you're just, it keeps all of that shit, so you don't have to worry about anything.
I played probably 100 hours of Ascension on my phone over the period.
I have probably played, because there was a while there where I would buy every new expansion and just throw it all together, because that's the only way that you could do that.
Right.
Like, you can't do that in the real life because it's just not tenable, but you can throw all the expansions together and just play everything, and it becomes kind of a broken game.
Right.
But it's still fun.
Yeah, it adds there's I can't remember which one, but one of the expansions adds another monetary source.
Oh yeah.
Which makes the game absolutely disgusting.
Yeah. And there is a speaking of apps, the Dominion app came out earlier this year, and if you get the base game, it's just free.
Okay.
If you get and you just buy the expansions if you want those, but it's a pretty fun implementation of that game.
Right.
If you like playing deck builders, it's a quick game. That's kind of taken over. I used to play Star Realms a lot on my phone, just whenever I was bored, or didn't have service mainly,
Right.
Because certain places around here you
Right.
just don't get service. But now I pull out that one, and it just plays so quickly.
Those would be the only games I would play on my phone. Would be games like that, and also like for example, like so Star Realms. The great thing about Star Realms 2 for a deck builder is that the base game, like in real life, the base game is $15.
Yeah.
And the expansions are $15.
Yeah.
And like I said, there's like 2 or 3, and so
There's bigger expansions that are like $15, but then there's like a lot of stuff that comes in packs.
there are some booster packs, but you know what's in
You know
them.
what's in them.
Yeah.
It's just that this has this type of
Right.
type of thing. There's like Crisis and Gambit, and then I had the ones that I got were the Union,
Yeah.
because that's where they mash stuff together, and you actually could start with a special character or something.
Right, and also when
Well,
you
you
have
start your hand was like your deck, your
Right.
starting deck was different than everybody else's.
and one of the expansions in the game, you can actually like play against the game itself.
yeah, I think I have some stuff for that too.
Yeah.
I played Holder has Hero Realms, and we played like one mission for that one. It was pretty cool.
I really do love Star Realms, and I like deck builders in general. But to me, that's one of the best deck builders.
Oh yeah, it's really really
That
good.
one and Ascension to a degree. I own Dominion in real life. I own the game, but I've never played it.
Yeah,
And it's one of the first deck building
it is
games.
the first
The
deck
first.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Donald X. Vaccarino.
Yeah, it's a fun game. It just doesn't have. It's just all, and we'll talk about this later. It's all mechanics.
We're kind of doing a preview.
It's
now.
all mechanics. Like
Right.
there's no there's nothing interesting with the theme. It's
Right.
just let me make combos.
Right.
Let me just make combos, and that's it.
Right. So I've done that. That's on the nerd side. On the reality TV trash programming side, I watched almost the entirety of the current season of Perfect Match. Now,
Okay.
Perfect Match, what they do is it's another show that's hosted by Nick Lachey, who hosts
Sure.
Love Is Blind. And what they do is they take people from all these other Netflix reality shows that didn't get a quote unquote romantic connection with someone like on like Love Is Blind or Too Hot to Handle, and so they put them all on a not all on an island, but like in a house, because you got to have a mansion for these.
Yes.
And they stick 5 girls and 5 guys, and they're like most of them know each other from other shows. So someone will be like, "Oh, I had a crush on you watching, or whatever." So that they already have like a disposition already set up, and what's crazy is what they do on this show. Is like if you don't match up with someone before the end of the night, you get kicked off the show.
Okay.
That's how that works. And just like, well, I mean, they're all matched up, right? Yes, but they have a competition every day, like a Survivor type competition.
Of course, yeah.
It's called a compatibility competition, but it's not just an obstacle course of bullshit. And the couple that wins that gets to go in this secret little hideaway place. And they get to choose to bring 2 new people into the house.
Okay.
They can either choose a person for themselves to date, or they could put 2 different people on a date that are already in a couple.
Okay.
And so it always like every other day, it's either like 2 more guys or 2 more girls. So 2 people leave the show every night. It's either the new people or people that were already there. And the backstabbing that goes on is wild. If you like that kind of stuff.
Yeah. They stuff like that. They weed out the normal people. You're only gonna get.
Dude, these people are not normal.
You're only gonna get like the most narcissistic, sociopathic people.
These
on these
people,
things.
these
The
people
largest
take
of egos.
These
Yes.
people take. This is the only reason. Well, the only
And
reason.
it's even worse
Yeah.
because they're taking from other reality shows.
Right.
So they're like distilling the insanity down.
Right. Yes. Exactly.
I saw all the bullshit you did on this show. You're
Yeah.
not doing that to
you
me.
take
In-
one.
MTV used to do that.
Oh,
where
yeah.
They would take people from their other reality shows
Yes.
and mash them
Yeah,
together.
it took the Road Rules versus the Real World.
Yeah.
They should have called this Second Chance.
Yeah.
But like Brady said, like they take like, you know, any of the shows. Eventually, in the early days, like Survivor, it was just a show with people on an island, and they were just trying to make
There
it.
were a couple of personalities, and they realized, that's
Let's
how
dial this shit up.
That's how they do it. Like,
Right.
it's personalities. So
Now
like,
imagine a show like Survivor, like in season 5 or 6, where you have like 1 or 2 nut jobs and like everybody else is normal, but instead of that, everybody's crazy.
yeah.
And
Everyone is just from the. I'm not gonna say that, no man.
like most of the dudes are fuck boys, and most of the girls are getting screwed over.
Uh-huh.
Like that is the show. That is most of those shows. So yeah, that's what I've been up to.
Okay. Cool. Jay, what have you been up to?
Marvel Champions again. I've now with not in totally within my possession, but I now have access to all of the cards for the hero side of the game because it just kind of roped me in. I finally was able to build a deck. I built a deck with Jubilee with the Justice. I was about to say Paradigm, but Aspect.
Yeah.
And it's a lot of fun. There's a lot of threat removal in her alter ego form, which I kind of dig that. There's some card drawing shenanigans, which I think are pretty fun, and so I've been enjoying playing it. We played myself and our friend of the show, John Sheldon. We played Wednesday morning after work. He played a domino aggression deck that he put together, and that one both went pretty well. We finally were able to defeat Rhino because he and I have not been, even with our friend Derek Anderson playing in the third seat, we haven't been able to play the opening scenario of it and actually win. So it was kind of good to get that out of the way. We played again tonight. Same deck, but our friend Nathan was running the domino deck, and our friend of the show and fellow podcaster Michael Hill had just the Venom out of the box. But the Venom out of the box is really strong.
Yeah.
I enjoyed that. I do think we would have won, but we were facing the Green Goblin Mutagen because I wanted to go back to that one. I think we had it handled, but it was going to be like another hour before we could actually like finish everything up with it. But I think overall, like I'm starting to get the hang of deck building, and I really love the mutant cards. I think the X-Men, X-Force stuff that they put out, I think is really good. I can't wait for Nightcrawler in September.
Me too.
So how do you acquire extra cards? Are they in boosters or?
Okay, so this is the LCG format, which is a living card game format,
Right.
popular by Fantasy Flight. If you've heard about it in others, because I think they've trademarked the name, but it's called I think it's called an expandable.
They
card
usually
game.
call it like an expandable card game.
But
or
the way it
something like
works
that.
is if you go out, like, let's say you and Ethan want to start playing Marvel Champions. If you go out and buy the base game has every single the one you buy and the one he'd buy are the same cards in the same boxes.
Sure.
The hero packs that come in, there are 60 card packs. Each one of them contain every single card that every other pack with that name has.
Sure.
So there is no hunt for cards.
Right.
It's like, oh, I want to play Storm.
Right.
Storm has her own deck. It comes with her specific, sometimes 15 up to 20, depending on how the hero
it's
is
usually
built.
15 in the deck, and if they have extra stuff, it's stuff that stays outside of the deck in its own special thing.
Typically, yeah. But even then, it's still considered part of like their set. So like the numbers for the set can go from 15 to 20. Then one aspect, you have aggression, which is about dealing damage. Justice, which is about thwarting the villain's schemes. Protection, which is about defending yourself or defending other players. And leadership, which is about gathering and consolidating allies and getting the most out of them. One of those aspects will appear with that deck. You don't have to keep that aspect to that hero. If you have cards from other aspects, you can build them that way instead. And then they add typically some extra cards from each of the other aspects. More so lately because there's so many aspect cards out in the wild.
Right.
They've actually taken to giving you different modules to add to different villain encounters.
Yeah.
And in addition to your own cards, you also have your own obligation, which goes in the encounter deck. And you have your nemesis that can come out if the Shadows from the Past card gets played on you during the encounter phase.
So my question though is, like, let's just say I bought the Venom deck.
Okay.
How do I acquire more cards to put in that deck specifically?
You have
All
to
the
get
other
packs.
sets, all the other packs,
All the
base
other
set,
packs,
yeah,
and
like
the base set.
and the base set, and there's 7 deluxe
You would have to have the
expansions.
base set. Like if you just want to play the game yourself, you would have to get the base set because
Right.
it has all the little tokens and everything that you need to play.
Sure.
and villains because you have to have a villain.
Right.
But if you wanted to say deck build, this is the problem. It's like if you want to like champions is good if you just want to kind of deck build on your own, you can just go and find like say I like this one and I want to build in the justice aspect. Well, let me find some heroes that also come in the justice aspect. So you get those heroes and you just get the cards that come with them.
Gotcha.
And you can deck build. If you're not buying everything, then you go on and you say like look online for a deck and you're like I want to play this deck. This looks cool. Well, it's probably going to say that you need like 10 packs.
Yeah.
So you have to that's the only problem with LCGs is like catching up can be a bear, but once you're like keeping up with it,
I got you.
You just have all of the cards.
You kind of just have to get everything
Yeah.
if you want like the flexibility of
if
building.
you want the flexibility of building whatever you want, you kind of have to do that. But
Right.
if you're just okay with, oh, I like this hero, let me get that.
Right.
You can get that and play it. It's not going to be as strong as just deck building, but if you have some of the other cards, you can eventually like, okay, well, I can take this thing out and I can put this in. You're just not going to do that much deck building.
Right. Like if for example, on there's a Venom deck. Is there a
Yeah.
Spider-Man deck?
Yeah.
Okay.
These are in the base
There are
game.
two You have Spider-Man Peter Parker and Spider-Man Miles Morales.
Yeah.
Okay. So for example, if I bought both of the different Spider-Man decks, would there be cards that would be interchangeable?
So yeah, you have the cards that are in the hero set that if you're playing that hero, all of those cards have to be in the deck.
Sure.
And then you have minimum 40 to build up to. So it's
And
usually,
maximum 50. You
Yeah.
typically want to go lower because the less
Right.
cards, the more likely are
You
to
want
draw the cards you want.
synergy and
yeah. But I've seen more. I've seen over 40. I've seen 50 card decks.
sure.
And you just fill in with that. There's also a basic aspect that can just go in everything. So these are kind of like your staple cards that depending on and it's often locked to like this card will be, especially if it's a basic card, it'll be like, okay, this card you have to be an Avenger to play this card.
Gotcha.
Or this card you have to be an X-Men or a mutant to play this card.
Sure.
So especially with like the Avenger stuff in the beginning, and then there's some Guardian stuff where you have to be a Guardian because they had the Guardians of the Galaxy.
Right.
There's some champion stuff because they did a few champions.
There's a few Web
decks.
Warrior things as
Web
well.
Warriors. They have that too.
The upcoming one is going to be Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
Yeah.
And so you're going to have S.H.I.E.L.D. cards are going to be appearing up there. I think S.H.I.E.L.D. and maybe some Avenger cards.
Yeah,
because
Shield's
they-
already had some cards, but it's not like. But they're usually like anybody can play them.
Right. So I could like pick a lane and be like, I just want all the X-Men stuff, and
Yeah.
I think honestly, yes. If you wanted like say Avengers stuff, I think you've got a good pool
Especially
there.
the X-Men is a good like place to go. Okay, I want the X-Men stuff. Let me start with Mutant Genesis and just buy the stuff that I want because they're all going to be. Even the allies are like, you can't play this unless you're an X-Men.
Right.
There's ways to cheat around that, but like most of the time, it's you have to be that trait.
Gotcha.
It's locked to that trait.
Gotcha.
And there's support. There's all kind of like support cards and stuff that for X-Men.
right.
And there's the same with Avengers too, but some of theirs are more generic.
What's the max? 4 copies of the same
Three.
card? Three.
Three of the same card, unless the card is unique, then in the case only one. Some certain cards also have a restriction in and of themselves.
Yeah.
Like there's a card, like there's 3 cards, Energy, Genius, and Strength.
Yeah.
And each of those come with 2 resource icons on them. You're only allowed to have one named of each. So you can have one Genius, one Energy, one Strength.
Those are
And
the different types of abilities, right?
Well, those are resources.
different types of resources.
Those are
Different
resources.
yeah.
Yeah, because there's like 4 resources, and usually it doesn't matter when you play a card, but sometimes it'll be like, hey, if you play this with a strength resource, then
You get this
then you get this
bonus.
bonus ability
Yeah,
or something
gotcha.
like that.
I'm definitely curious about the game because I played it with y'all a couple times. It seems like it's really fun.
Yeah, it's a really fun game. I really enjoy it.
Because like for the people listening, if you haven't played it before, it's like cooperative.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
it's one of the few games with a solo mode that I would deem to play solo.
right.
Yeah,
It's just-
I played it so much solo. Like, But it's very fun to play multiplayer and solo.
How much is just one deck? Like $15?
Yeah, $15-$16.
Yeah.
Sir, you play this solo while also drunk and watching Earthsea.
I mean, that is true. But I was watching Earthsea, so I had to do something.
You have to do something to numb the brain.
And that was,
Yeah.
but that was only once. It's not a regular occurrence
Yeah.
at Chateau.
Yeah, because I'm
Chateau
not
Davis.
watching Earthsea all that much. Also, I ran out of ginger beer, so I'm almost out of more the second bottle of rum. But
That's neither here nor there.
yeah, that's neither here nor there. Marvel Champions is great. I love it. I'm not super looking forward to the Shield stuff, but maybe the mechanics will will get me instead of the theme.
Well, we were
all hoping.
You were hoping for street level. I was hoping for Fantastic Four.
Yeah.
And we ended up with Shield. I've
I am
heard
interested 'cause
Sam Wilson might be a part of it.
Sam
Winter
Wilson
Soldier.
probably. The first two, they showed the silhouettes, and one of them is absolutely Nick Fury. The other one is probably either Maria Hill or Quake.
Maybe Mockingbird.
It was a female with short hair, so it was
It's probably Maria Hill.
Yeah.
Probably.
I'm interested to see how Nick Fury would play, because I think that they could do interesting things, and they're still every person that comes out, none of them feel this feels exactly like this guy.
They're all unique in their own
They're all very
gameplay.
unique. They might be able to do kind of similar things, both of these guys are really good at taking out minions, but they kind of do it in a different way.
Or this character is really good at thwarting the heist.
Yeah. Mhm.
But can't really necessarily deal direct damage or things like that.
And that's for me, for just thematically, my favorite things about Marvel are it's do you like grounded characters? We've got them. Or do you like space captains? We've got them.
Yeah.
Or if you like mutants, and that's kind of in the middle where they're sort of
The day they come out with either Ghost Rider or Silver Surfer, I'll get into
Midnight
Marvel Champions.
Suns.
Midnight Suns.
Midnight Suns will be take my money.
Yeah. Yeah.
That was another one because you could have in Midnight Suns. You also have Moon Knight. Luke Cage shows up in there as well. Things like
Blade.
that. Blade.
Swamp Thing.
Yeah. No, Man Thing.
No,
Man Thing. Don't kill me.
DC's.
Yeah, that's close enough.
I like Swamp Thing.
I don't like Man Thing because Man Thing is goofy to me. Man Thing
he was really cool in the Werewolf by Night thing that they did.
I still have not seen that.
That is one of the best things that Marvel has done in the last since Endgame. Legitimately, it's good.
Man Thing, if you are afraid of him, he makes you catch on fire. And then as you're on fire, you get more and more afraid of him, so you keep catching on fire.
Well,
It's
Man
fire
Thing's
plus.
best friend is Howard the Duck. So, I mean, that tells you what, the deal of Man Thing.
Yeah, sometimes Marvel is absurd.
Oh, yeah, very often. So, Jay, is that all you've been doing?
That's it for me, brother.
Yeah. I've been playing. I actually got to play. I was happy because I beat the really hard one shot that they did, because they've been doing these challenges on Twitter lately. Fantasy Flight, they've been putting them out, and I finally beat this new one that was super hard. So yeah. All right. So what have I been doing? First of all, there was a new cartoon that was executive produced by one Bruce Timm. If you remember,
I know what
he
this is.
was along with Paul Dini, was the creator of Batman the Animated Series. And I was watching some stuff on this, and apparently we didn't talk about Paul Dini enough. We didn't even mention him, unfortunately, when we should have, because he was actually one of the main creative force of Batman the Animated Series.
Oh shit!
Well, this is one where Bruce Timm is the main creative force in it, and this is Batman the Caped Crusader. This came out on Amazon, and it's very interesting. It's not as, I can't say, it reminds me of My Adventures with Superman in that it takes Batman in a different direction that you don't normally, or it does things, or it takes a lot of the villains and everything in different ways that you don't normally see.
Gotcha.
Batman's kind of the same guy. He's a little bit more of an asshole. His main character arc is that he stops calling Alfred Pennyworth the whole time, and he's kind of an asshole to him. But it's a very interesting. This one starts out kind of where Batman still doesn't like the Gotham PD still doesn't like Batman. Like they really, in fact, there's the whole big thing. It starts with some people established and starts with some people you see their origins. It has a very interesting take on Harley Quinn, like a very, very interesting take that I didn't think was going to work, but they somehow pulled off. Yeah, it just does interesting things. This feels like, and with the design and everything, it feels like a Gotham that's in like the 20s. Like it feels
nice.
It feels like
The noir.
yeah,
kind of.
it feels like it doesn't like Gotham feels like just a city in the like 20s or 30s. Like it feels a lot like in the old Batman comics. There a lot of stuff looks like that, and it's really interesting. They do some interesting things with Two-Face, and it's weird because so Diedrich Bader does Two-Face's voice in this, and Diedrich Bader did Batman's voice in The Brave and the Bold.
Oh, nice.
Hamish Linklater is the voice of this Batman.
Hamish Linklater, he grew on me, but he wasn't the greatest. He wasn't like super great in that, but I like him as he's really good in Midnight Mass. If you haven't watched that, go watch that.
There's also John DiMaggio.
John DiMaggio is like the mob boss guy, Thorn.
Bullock.
Oh, he's Bullock. He's not Bullock. Somebody else is Thorn. I think he was on Reno 911.
Jason Watkins is Alfred. Tom Kenny is Firebug. This looks good. I want to get Amazon so I can watch this.
It's pretty good.
Because I saw things with the new Harley, with the new Batman.
Yeah, and they do an interesting thing with Clayface. He's an interesting. The way they do him is interesting.
Dan Donahue is voiced by him.
Yeah. Penguin was kind of interesting, but they kind of just did Penguin, except that they gender swapped them, and that's really all that they did. But like, I think it's Mimi Driver did Penguin, and she did good.
Yes,
it's just that like it's just. Penguin would go a little bit further. Like the ending of that episode is like kind of crazy, but
as long as they still made Penguin short,
yeah, it's interesting. And I really liked it, and I like the interactions with Batman and like Commissioner Gordon are very interesting. There's a really cool with that. They really talk like corruption is a big theme in this. There's something that happens at the very end in the very last episode that I didn't particularly like, but I have a very specific, like, there are things that I like about that I think are kind of core to Batman that they did that didn't quite fit. But overall the series was pretty good. I liked it a lot. So check that out if you are interested in that. And then this last Sunday's something else that's on TV was the House of the Dragon season 2 finale. And man, like not a lot happened in this season. Like very little happened in this fucking season. You're basically still waiting for the war to happen. At the end of last season, you're like, oh shit, the war's about to happen. Because we did like 20 years worth of stuff in one season because we had all these time skips and we got to get to this point. And then we're still waiting for the war to happen. And that's my main complaint. I think I like a lot of the things that happened in the season, and especially that happened in the finale. A lot of people are bitching and moaning online about everything that happened. They think that several characters got assassinated. I don't believe that. I thought that they did the work to help you understand why a character would make this decision. But man, it feel like so on HBO, on Max, it looked like there was about 15 minutes left. And I thought, okay, well, we're going to get one of the three things that I thought was going to happen by the end of this. Three big things that are, if you know the histories and you've read the books or you've read like up on the history of like what's supposed to happen. I thought like one of these things is going to happen. I don't know how they're going to do it in 15 minutes. Well, you only had 5 minutes left because 10 minutes is like a behind the scenes things, and I forgot about that. And nothing happened. It was still just build up. Like they're still just building up, and they literally wouldn't let anything happen this finale. And I was like, what the fuck? And it's very frustrating because if you watch all the Game of Thrones stuff, and if you also watched, the first season of House of the Dragons, you were conditioned to, okay, either in the second to last episode or the last episode, something big happens. We just know that that's how they set it up, and that's a good way to set up your series, I think. Or it's not a terrible way to set up your series, because then you have something that's like, oh shit, this thing happened. Nothing fucking happened. Nothing fucking happened.
Sadness.
It is very frustrating. Apparently there were a lot of behind the scenes stuff. There was also, they had to deal with the writer's strike and all that, and the actor's strike. And that's why this one was only 8 episodes versus 10 episodes. But if you watched this and you weren't paying attention, you would have thought like, oh man, these next 2 episodes are going to be really good. And it's like, nope, that's the end of the season. If it goes like the first season, you got 2 years in between seasons.
Jesus.
Yeah, so you got 2 years to still wait on stuff to happen. So they probably killed a lot of enthusiasm for the show. And like I said, it's really just frustrating that like not much happened. There was a couple of big things that happened, but most of like one character's just moping around in a castle losing his goddamn mind, and it's like, okay, that's like 2 episodes. I don't need that the entire time.
Goodness.
It was very, very frustrating. Like I said, I liked what happened, but it was just that and I don't think anybody's character was assassinated. I think that's over the top, but man, it was just like, shit, nothing's happening. What the fuck? Like, can we get some kind of war? Can we get some big event that we know is supposed to happen? And everybody I think is overblown about some of the stuff, but it's just like, man, it was a disappointing season. Some stuff was really good. I like all the actors, but there was one part of this finale where they went to Essos, and it was like, man, you could have cut this out and nothing would have been lost. Nobody was interested in this. But I don't know. That's my little rant about that. It was frustrating and it sucked, but like, I don't know. I'm probably still gonna watch it. I have Max and it's on there, so might as well. But the enthusiasm, especially if they do 2 years in between this, like that is ridiculous. That's gonna be a problem. So yeah, that's what I've been doing. Jay, we got any feedback?
Yes.
Oh shit.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I wasn't ready for that.
There you go. But no, from a friend of the show, friend of us, and fellow podcaster, Mr. Jason Holder of the Whiskey and Wrestling Podcast. We have feedback from last week's top 5 scariest scenes in video games of all time. With Fatal Frame, you can deal with it. With Pyramid Head, you can only run. There is no dealing with it, which puts Pyramid Head above from me. Mm-hmm. So one of our big debates from last week was the Fatal Frame versus Pyramid Head from Silent Hill 2. I can appreciate that. For me, you only ever run with Pyramid Head. Mm-hmm. With Fatal Frame, you have to.
You're forced
you are
to deal with
trapped.
It. Yeah,
and you have to fight it, and you have to let it get as close to you as you possibly can. That is so nerve-wracking.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That is so, like, just thinking about that right now just gets under my fucking skin.
Pyramid Head is cooler for sure, but I mean,
the design for that is cooler. Yeah, but
I agree with you, Holder. I just kind of got outvoted. So
I don't mind the decision that we made. However, me and Brady side with you.
Yeah.
Not saying that our decision, our choice was also wrong.
I tried to argue, but it just didn't work. So there you go.
I feel it could have gone both ways.
Well, PT won, so
Yes.
yeah,
I'll take that one.
I mean, I think we all took it.
yeah. I think we all agreed to that.
Yeah.
Is that the first time you've ever had like your number one was like at the top of the list?
No, I don't think so.
We'd have to review it again.
I'm not going to.
No.
I'm not going to go through all the episodes to see.
Too much work.
If we were a popular podcast, we could get like some random fan to put in hours of labor to do that.
We'd have a playlist of all of our episodes.
There's a YouTube show that I watch from the Found Footage Festival. and it's called VHS Party Live, where they show clips from random videotapes, and it's not anything popular. It's some really obscure shit. And they have different segments, and a lot of them start with This Week in, whatever. One of them is This Week in Windows, and what that segment is it is there are graphical like things that were in video and videotapes back in like the mid 80s to the late 90s, early 2000s, where they would have a graphic, usually like on the intro of a program, either a TV show or an infomercial or something. And it would be like a flying window with like different images, maybe like people that were on the thing, or maybe just like, graphics of something that the topic was about. So they've done like 500 episodes of the show. They've been doing it for a long time. One of the fans of the show took every episode, noted each episode, the time in which the Flying Windows episode happened, and counted how many flying windows they have shown throughout the entirety of all their episodes.
Jesus Christ.
There were over 2,000.
Good God.
That's dedication.
Yeah.
That's more than
None of us have that dedication for anything.
No.
That all the feedback we got, Jay?
That's all the feedback for this week. But passengers, thank you for joining us on the bus this evening, this morning, or this afternoon, what time you are listening to us as well. If you'd like to leave feedback on this episode or any past episodes you may have listened to, travelersontheomnibus@gmail.com. Again, that is travelers, 1L, on the omnibus @gmail.com. Jody, where else can they engage with us?
You can directly take part in any polls we may or may not have on Spotify and message us directly through our email, because I don't think you can message us.
You can do comments.
Can
now.
you?
Instead of having directed questions on episodes,
you can comment on our Spotify page.
Comment, like, share, and subscribe.
Yeah.
Don't forget to hit that bell.
Smash that like button.
Yeah. Smash it like a sex thing.
Yep.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you enjoy what you're listening to and would like to spell that, let me try that again. Delete everything that is the whole episode. Just this last part. Delete all of
everything.
It. There we go.
Delete.
Yes, but ladies and gentlemen, if you've been enjoying what we've been speaking to you and you'd like to share that with friends who don't listen to podcasts on the same channels you do, we are available on Spotify, Amazon, Apple, YouTube Music through our YouTube channel, Travelers on the Omnibus, and iHeartRadio.
Well, I think that leads us into our main topic. So today we're going to, or tonight, or whenever the fuck you listen to this, we're going to be talking about board games. And we're going to be talking about what makes a game boring, what are, theme wise, what are boring, what do you consider a boring theme, and things like that. So, I guess we will start out with like when I say this, like when you look at a board game and you decide that it is boring, what are some things that in your mind make a game boring?
Okay. We're talking themes, not like mechanics when you actually like sit
We'll get
down
into that,
and open
yeah.
the game. This is like first glance, like you see
First
it on
glance,
see it on a shelf at a store.
Let's start first glance. Yeah.
Medieval.
Mm-hmm.
I enjoy the King Arthur game that Shadows over Camelot,
Which we'll be playing next week.
Yes. Oh, okay. I enjoy that because I enjoy the legend of King Arthur, the Knights of the Round Table, and everything it entails with that. So that enticed me. But if I look at a game and it's just like generic medieval setting, castle in the background, you have some knights duking out in an open field.
Yeah.
It doesn't really entice me as much as say like Vikings or like fantasy or like any type of like fantasy setting. So I can't really explain it much more than that.
Yeah.
That's fair.
Yeah. Does anybody have anything else?
For me, I would say like anything that's just a generic skin that could be applied to anything. Like not specifically. Originally, because I'm a horror fan, I was always excited to play something that was like horror themed. But over the years, after playing several specific subgenre of horror themes, I've become immediately just bored with the idea of playing a game that has zombies in it.
Yeah. That was definitely going to be something I was going to say. Yeah.
I used to love trying those games out, but after playing quite a few of them, I find most of them dull and just tedium.
Yeah.
Like I used to really love Dead of Winter. That game is tedious. That's all it is to me.
Yeah, and I agree, and I think it has something to do with like an overused theme.
Yes.
There was a while there where there were like, it seemed like every month there was like 3 new zombie games that were coming out or being announced or something like that, and it was it was just kind of overwhelming.
It's an oversaturated thing.
Yeah.
Well,
Like,
it's an
with
easy
zombies,
go-to.
I think especially. Yeah.
It's an easy go-to because it's an ultimate evil villain that you don't have to think about because everybody knows what they are.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's good. Jay, you got anything? What do you think with
Jody
all?
hit it on the head for me. Zombies. When I see zombies initially, I'm like, okay, like what is the iteration of this that is going to make this interesting?
Yeah. That is also how it is with me. A lot of times, if it is a theme that I'm not interested in, I then have to go to, well, what are you doing that makes me interested? I've been trying to think about this when I was writing all these notes, and I feel like I wouldn't say I'm a theme person or a mechanics person, but because oftentimes like a theme will interest me and I'll look more into the game, but oftentimes it'll be like I'm not even interested in this theme all that much, but the mechanics are what really brings me there with a lot of games.
If I may add another turn away with
Yeah.
it. Have you'll look at like a selection of games that you're about to buy, and like it's like half of the games that you see are like reskinned games of like a TV show or a movie. Like oh, this is Shadows over Camelot. However, this is Game of Thrones edition.
Yeah.
Or, this is
I was hoping you were going to take the example a little further. Like, this is Shadows over Camelot, but Friends.
Yeah.
I was
Yeah.
gonna say SpongeBob.
But
Reskins.
I would play the fuck out of SpongeBob over Camelot.
Reskins of I would say reskins of Catan, but a lot of times when Catan does like a theme like Star Trek, they change some of the fundamental rules of the game.
They were pretty good at like changing things up. Like the Game of Thrones one had like the wall that you had to deal with and things like that. And the Star Trek one added like the people,
The crew.
the
Yeah,
crew.
Yeah.
So they were pretty good about doing things like that. But yeah, I think like, yeah, when you reskin something into like some kind of property, that definitely makes me go, oh, that doesn't seem good. Also, if it's just a licensed game,
Right.
and I'm not familiar with like who made the game, like if it's not a publisher that I know about or a designer that I know about, I'm gonna go, ugh.
or a designer that is become synonymous with publishing bad games.
Yeah.
Like now, sometimes it's a 50-50, but when it comes to licensed games like USopoly, but on the opposite end, there is one thing I wanted to say real quick on the opposite spectrum. So normally I wouldn't give a shit about making wine, but I love viticulture.
Yeah.
Because it's an amazing game and the theme and the mechanics kind of tie in pretty good together.
Yeah, I think that has a lot to do with it is how mechanics fit with the theme, because you get a lot of these when somebody talks about like the typical dry, quote unquote dry Euro. They're talking about something where you could kind of theme it with whatever. You get like your Reiner Knizias, your Stefan Felds, where it can be
Uwe Rosenberg.
Rosenberg.
Especially in his earlier days.
Yeah, you can
Bonanza, to bean or not to bean.
Yeah,
is a card game
you're
about
trading
collecting
beans.
beans and trading them.
Yeah. Now the beans have like funny, like they look funny on there, but you're
That
literally
game is
just
saved
changing.
by its mechanics and its artwork.
Yeah. And I think that has a lot to do with me. Oftentimes, like mechanics will save a game. Like I'll be like, I'm not super interested in it, and usually like the theme will grow on me. like I love a lot of Stefan Feld's games, but they're kind of themeless. He has a lot of like he made a like he's like the Queen Games has been coming out with this cities line that's just like reskins of like old games where they were just a city, like it and it's just like you're in a city and you're doing things in a city. Like sometimes you're building up a city, sometimes you're I don't know going across canals. I don't know. It's always like he's one probably I would probably say out of like designers, he's one of the ones. Him and Knizia are the two where like their stuff can be like the theme hardly ever matches with the and especially Knizia, because Knizia they've reskinned like his games and re-put out his games like so many times it's ridiculous. And that's not necessarily a bad thing because I think they both make very good games. It's just that like when you think of dry Euros, you're probably gonna like most people are probably gonna name like a Stefan Feld game.
Right. And then you also have like you have like just generic like as far as themes go, again, not mechanics, but you have generic sci-fi or generic fantasy.
I think generic sci-fi you don't see that much, but I think generic fantasy is probably the most boring thing that the most boring theme for me. Like if I see it generic fantasy, I'm just like I'm immediately going to sleep because it's just like I can't do this.
Yeah, it better be like a good a designer with some good mechanics.
Even stepping up to like Lord of the Rings, like that's still like right above generic fantasy.
Right.
Like you got to give me like some War of the Rings level like shit that you throw in there for me to be interested in that game.
Right, and for me, like some of the earlier like really like high hard level like the super intense, lots of mechanics games, and it has a generic fantasy theme to it, but they improved on it. Was Terra Mystica, which is your complete base like of generic like races when it comes to fantasy, with the exception of the merfolk creatures that they have in there.
Yeah.
But when they
Gaia Project proved that game can have any theme,
right?
Because Gaia Project is an iteration of Terra Mystica.
It is,
but it's a sci-fi version of it. I think if you had swapped the themes, it's the same. It would have just been the same same progression. The theme there was not necessary.
I agree 100%, and I also like with those two games, Gaia Project is the superior version of it because they condense some of the upkeeps and things like that into easier to digest mechanics.
Yeah,
but yes, that they could slap anything on there. They could slap Cyberpunk on that and make it work.
Yeah, and you also get like there are the one of like the if you played board games enough, like you hear about like trading in the Mediterranean. That's the generic boring theme because a lot of Euros, especially back in the day, I think they've kind of moved away from it a little bit. Like you don't see it as much, but back in the day, like they would do trading in the Mediterranean so much. You were just this ship guy and you were doing some trading, or you were on the docks doing some trading, or you were just putting around the Mediterranean Sea.
And they're usually named after a place.
Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Or a specific
explorer. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. But even then, like a more recent game that came out, compared to some of these other games, is like Concordia. That is trading in the Mediterranean, and for me, it's the mechanics. It's the special, hand building that you kind of do of okay, I buy this card and it goes in my hand, and then I play it down, and then I have to play this other card to pick everything back up. But if I do it just right, I can keep just kind of cycling things out. And then also these are how I score at the end of the game. Like that's very interesting to me. So like it overcomes the boringness of the I'm
theme.
Just doing this thing.
Like Castles of Burgundy.
Yeah.
Right.
Castles of Burgundy is as generic as you come. Nobody can, if you tell me what the theme is, you're lying because it's not. You're like you're putting out tiles.
Yep.
The same thing with the spiritual successor, Castles of Tuscany, which I like a little bit better than Burgundy, but I think I'm in the minority there. But you're just putting out these tiles, these color tiles.
For For me, when it gets deeper than just like the surface level of whatever the genre it's based off of.
Yeah.
Like for example, like Scythe is like steampunk, but Scythe is steampunk, but like the theme and the mechanics really are like hardcore, like tied into the game.
Yeah.
I mean that's my opinion anyway on it.
Yeah, I think they fit. In my opinion, they fit pretty closely with the game, and it makes sense. Like everything that you're doing, and yeah, sometimes that just doesn't happen. I think an interesting thing to think about is also like something that is like the theme is necessarily boring, but it's aesthetically pleasing. I think an example of that could possibly be like Wingspan.
Yeah.
Wingspan. If you tell them, hey, it's a game about collecting birds,
Right.
You're like in this bird sanctuary and you're putting birds there, and it's like, man, that doesn't sound interesting at all. But then you play it and you're like, oh man, let me get this pretty bird here. I want this bird.
Holy
like,
shit, let me get this barn owl.
yeah, let me get this fucking turkey. I have to have this turkey. Like it, and it's just aesthetically pleasing. And I think for me, that's why like I think there are some mechanics with the quote the kind of upgraded version of that in Wormspan that I like better, but I still would prefer to play Wingspan because that just like even though you're doing dragons, it's just like I can't put for some reason like that one doesn't work as well for me as the
You can't
the
go
birds.
outside and observe a dragon.
You wouldn't think like a game about birds would not only be like uninteresting or boring, but they go deep into it with like you've got the water and the land and the air birds.
I've explained
forest, grassland, and water birds.
Yeah,
I've explained the game so many times to my brother and sister when they would come over and we would have a board game night. And I'm like, okay, so you're bird watchers and you want to observe and collect birds. And you want to feed them and hatch their eggs and get more birds. And they're like, you're fucking lame. And I'm like, no, but just play the game. It's so fun.
Yeah.
No, then you take out a 22 and you shoot them in the leg and go, no,
Yeah.
you're lame.
Yeah. And it the like special abilities and things don't always fit with them, but like what this bird eats, like if it's a predator bird, it's gonna eat. You're gonna have to pay like the rodents for it,
right?
Rodents or the fish or
If it's a water bird that eats if it's a heron, you're gonna have to pay fish for it. If it's a cardinal, you're gonna have to pay berries for it or worms maybe.
If it's like a finch, you're gonna pay like berries and weeds.
Yeah, yeah. And like
it's a heron, you're gonna have to seal the hole that you put in its beak in order for it to fly again.
Jesus. Yeah, and the amount of eggs that it can take, has to do. If it lays a lot of eggs, it's going to have a lot of eggs.
There are some birds that live
there.
in multiple habitats.
And I think like talking about Wingspan and Wormspan is like that's a game that like Wormspan it seems like really cool, and I've seen people play it and I've watched it online. And that really makes me feel that like Wingspan itself is like the mechanics and everything are really the theme and the mechanics are tied very close to each other. It would be, I mean, I guess you could do it with other species of animal, but it would be difficult because there's so many different species of birds, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that game works amazing theme and mechanics like hand in hand.
Yeah, and it's because they had to like change it to dragons, which they had to basically make up another animal that could do this because you had to be able to lay eggs. You had to be able to like they eat. There's a wide variety of things that they eat.
Right.
I want fish span.
But the problem for me would be like if I was designing a version of Wingspan and it was dragons, it's like just like you said, they had to invent dragons. There's thousands of birds in Wingspan.
Yeah.
Well, hundreds. But there's hundreds of birds in Wingspan.
Yeah.
That's a lot of having to make up.
Hell, across the expansions, there probably are thousands now.
Yeah.
Legitimately.
I wouldn't be surprised.
For me, it's a two-tone test because when we talked about this subject, I wanted to kind of think about like my favorite board games, and for me, it's a two-tier test. First, is the primary loop, and I'm stealing that from Yahtzee Croshaw. Is the primary loop fun? So is the thing that you do most often in the game the thing that you have to do over and over again? Is that fun enough to sustain doing that over and over again? And in the game, does it iterate differently as you go further down in the game and like how that changes everything? If that happens, then okay, that is a solid game. Then the second tier is, how do the mechanics go with the theme? I'm going to take Dune Imperium, which I think right now is coming close to my top 5. At least for the last, like, say, I would say for the last 5 years, that game's tie-in with its mechanics to its theme, I think, are almost flawless. You have your agent phase where you have someone going off and doing something secret and private and clandestine in order to gather you the resources in order to get your house in order. And then when you go into the deck collecting and the deck building side of things, that's you openly pursuing, okay, this is, I've used all this stuff and now I'm pursuing, getting these certain things and these certain cards. I think that was phenomenal game design, where it is a absolutely engaging primary loop that changes throughout the game, changes inside of the round that you're in. And then it ties it in with the mechanics of like the spy game that's being run in Dune in the background of these people in the forefront, like gathering their forces in order to be able to go to war, in order to have good leaders, and or when they're in the wartime. I think Dune Imperium is absolutely fantastic.
And the resources tied very well to
if it's a good game and the mechanics are tied to the theme properly, that to me puts it in my top echelon tier of games of all time.
Right. The original that they redid of Dune was also very well done, I think, as far as like the theme mechanics. The original one by Avalon Hill that they remade.
Yeah, and then because Gale Force 9 has it right now, because they did a redoing of Dune, and then they kind of condensed some of the things down. I've heard it's actually very well. That's one where preconception in my brain will always get in the way of me for that. I will prefer the older version because I want that kind of slow plotting. Like, here's an example: Star Wars Armada, a game that's been canceled, but I like Star Wars X-Wing. I think it did very well. I did not like Star Trek Attack Wing because they took a system based off of fighters in space and they tried to apply it to capital ships, which is what you have in Star Trek.
Right.
Star Wars Armada, that game is very thoughtful, plotting out. You have to kind of think ahead what the state of the board is going to look like in this, because it's not a matter of like a simple scrub fighter that's like flying through and doing things.
Right.
No, you have this issue where you have like giant ships, and like, yes, eventually I do want to make this turn, but it's going to take a couple turns because I'm a giant ship and I need to make sure the crew is all making sure that this happens properly. That I loved that about Armada, is the fact that it had that kind of plottingness that I think a capital ship battle ought to have. Going back to like the old Star Trek battles, like with like the ships that were almost like 1 to like 28th scale of the actual ship, and like flying around. I think that not 28th scale, 2800th scale.
Right,
excuse me.
right.
My apologies on that. But that to me is when but the first consideration is, does that primary loop hold up?
Right.
Stuff like I go back to the zombies thing. I think one is because zombies were too ubiquitous. I think it's kind of fallen back a little bit. Like they're still there, but it's kind of falling back into the periphery.
The popularity of zombies in the zeitgeist has also kind of died off a little bit.
Yes.
I don't think I'll have that same kind of problem with it, but the zombie theme was being attached to so much dog shit.
Right.
Yeah.
Because it's like, we've got Walking Dead, the card game, Walking Dead, the dice game, Walking Dead, this. And it wasn't just Walking Dead. There were other zombie projects in and of themselves that were kind of there. One in particular, I'm a big fan. I know there's people at the table that don't like this, but I'm a big fan of Escape the Curse of the Temple. I like that game.
I enjoyed that.
Yeah, I like that game because
I do not.
No, I like the timed manic energy. We have a goal and we have a certain amount of time in order to achieve that goal. That's cool. Zombie 15 is similar in that regard, in that you have 15 minutes to finish this game and you have to do this map going all the way from beginning to end.
Right.
And you have to achieve certain things there. But for me, the zombie part of it, every time the zombies showed up, we had to hit the brakes, deal with this problem, and then go on. As opposed to like in Escape the Curse of the Temple, whereas you come across the problem and you can either deal with it there or wait until you have everybody over to you and then you deal with the problem together, or you try to tackle it solo as everybody's trying to work together in that. I think
They actually made zombie version of
Escape the Curse of the
Temple.
like,
I played it
Escape-
once and I didn't like it.
Escape
but-
from the Zombie City.
Yeah.
I which to me in that one I think it was just a reskin. It felt like a reskin.
It
when I
added some
played it.
things like you had to get to a van and take the van out
in the
after you
in
find.
the expansions that came later for Escape the Curse of the Temple. That's I'm telling you right now that was just a reskinning.
Oh, okay.
And so yeah,
They just added that into the base game.
like
instead.
they added a gold idol to the game that you had to bring with you to the end. So it's kind of like having to get everybody in the car and then bring the car to the end. I like it. I prefer it in Escape because if you like that module and you want to play with it, you can.
Yeah.
If you don't like that module, you don't play with it. You just play the base game, or you add other modules that you might enjoy.
Okay.
So yeah, but yeah, primary loop is so important for these things.
Oh yeah.
Because you can have a super vanilla, like Settlers of Catan doesn't need to be like settling a continent. You could be like building, building up a city, things like that. And you have to get like, you could have like. And they've done done Settlers of Catan Trails to Rails, the U.S. version of which I think is actually a very good implementation of the base rules with some good stuff in there. But it also to me shows that game doesn't have to hook to like a exploration and colonization thing. You could do it with something else, like Star Trek, where it's more about exploration, quote unquote. But that's the background of in sci-fi.
Right.
But it's a solid primary loop. Your turn, you roll your dice, you play you acquire your resources, you trade with people, you build stuff, you move on. It's very engaging and also engages with everybody at the table. I hate Euro games when literally everybody's playing their own game with no way to affect anybody else at the table.
Yeah.
That can go. I don't care. You could have like the most amazing theme, and that theme and the mechanics can absolutely work wonders with one another. But if I'm not engaging with players at the table in any way, shape, or form, no, I don't want to do that.
One of my favorite games that does that also has like I think the theme ties really well to the mechanics and it has great loops, and that's Ticket to Ride. You know,
because it. And what's good about that loop is that it's the same in every game, and it's never the same in any game. Because yes, you're gathering train cars, but maybe somebody's already started putting things on the route you were going to go to. Now you've got to reconsider that. The play is simple, but the tactic,
the
and
ebb and flow of the tactics
is where that really comes to shine on.
Well,
that.
yeah, because you're always getting different tickets, so you're trying to complete different routes every single game. You're never going to get the exact same routes that you got in the past game. Yeah. Yeah, I get how you feel. And that's one of the things you were talking about, the not having the interaction. A lot of times that's called like multiplayer solitaire. I particularly don't mind that if I enjoy the mechanics. I don't feel like I necessarily have to have interaction necessarily, as long as I am enjoying playing the whatever the puzzle of the game is.
I have to agree with you on that too.
But I can see how a lot of people don't like that.
I really like, one of my favorite games is Roll for the Galaxy.
Yeah.
And that's pretty much what that game is. Most of the time you're playing your own turn. The only difference, the only actual interaction in that game is when everybody secretly decides on what the phase is. That's really the only interaction you have with what's going on with everybody else.
I think one of my favorite games that I think is just the theme works really good with the mechanics of it is Letters from Whitechapel. A hidden movement game in which it's everyone versus one, where you are trying to get to your home base as fast as possible while not being detected by everyone
If you're the
else.
one.
If you are the one. That fits perfectly in with the cops trying to find Jack the Ripper, with Jack the Ripper using carriages and lanterns in order to escape police custody, getting to his secret hideout every night. It's one of the few games that I will always sit down and will always enjoy playing.
No, I haven't played Fury of Dracula, but isn't it like not a reskin of Whitechapel, but it's got a similar content?
It is hidden movement.
It's hidden
It is
movement.
not a reskin.
Okay.
It is its own game. which is owned by Games Workshop of all people.
Oh,
yeah,
interesting.
And I think WizKids is the one doing the most recent edition of it.
I don't know. They came out with several editions like back to back to back.
Yeah, Fantasy Flight had second ed and third ed, and then they lost the license deal with Games Workshop, and then I think WizKids effectively just did a reprinting of what was already done with Fantasy Flight under their banner.
I think that's right, but I don't know.
With Fury of Dracula, you as the hunted have way more agency and can mess with the people hunting you far easier than you can. To me, and it's one of the reasons why Whitechapel to me is superior. The monster in that game is the one that is running scared. Like, you are a murderer. You have to commit the crime of the 19th century, kill 5 people in 4 nights, get back home each night, and they can't catch you. And all the while, you're sitting there and you have to plan out your next moves, and you can't give away too much with your eyes or your emotions.
Right.
While everyone at the table is like, I'm going to fucking get him. He's there. I'm coming to get him right now. You have people with invective, like talking about how they're going to beat the shit out of you. Not for real, but you get so engrossed in that chair that it just becomes so personal.
How well do you think that Fury ties theme to mechanics versus
I think it does a very good job. I think it not to the extent of, like I said, I think Letters is the ultimate hidden movement game.
Because it gets to a point where, correct me if I'm wrong, where in Fury of Dracula, there's like a night and day cycle.
Yeah.
Yes. Where if it gets to night and you're in the same city as Dracula, you're just fucked.
Yeah.
Not necessarily. If you're alone with Dracula, 100% absolutely. If the team is there because you are ganging up on him, you have a way better time. Like, you will always, if you can always maintain teamwork and be able to respond and get to him or get to someone who's being threatened by him, you will always have the advantage there. Almost always, because he can only shut down one person and then everybody else's activities go through without having to worry about it.
Yeah. I think that the theme is very strong in Fury of Dracula, and I really like the game. The only negative that I have for it is that it is such a long game. Like, it is such a long game, and it kind of, and towards the end it just kind of drags a lot of times.
But going with the theme of the game, it is hunters tracking down Dracula.
Yeah, it is super strong. Like, the things, like, you're leaving behind things in these cities, and you know, if Dracula can be in the water and he's harder to find, if like you can't find him if you're in the water with him, but he also takes damage because he can't sleep in the earth, and that's what, you know, he heals when he gets back to Castle Dracula. He has all these powers that he can use against you in a fight.
He gets so much stronger during night.
Yeah, at night he's like super strong. He's like much stronger than he is in the day. So
what I love is he will not use rail, because he's superstitious of it.
Yeah.
But everybody else can use rail. And so this, again,
yeah,
the
you
idea
can't
of
ever take a train.
like,
nice.
like the old monster versus new technology.
Right.
I think that's a fascinating look in there. Staying with hidden movement for a second, an idea of a game that to me has a great primary loop, but doesn't really have like mechanics that match what's going on with it, is Beast. I love the card drafting, or the drafting mechanic of the game. You could maybe make a argument that it's the Beast and the Hunters both playing off of one another and trying to figure out what each one is going to do. I could maybe be half sold on that, but to me, I think there's a better way for that to be handled, and it's been handled in other games as far as connecting theme to the mechanics. I still think it's a strong game. I like Beast. I wish I could sit down and play with it, because of the times I've had to, sit down and proctor with you.
I enjoy Beast. I don't like the draft mechanic. I like drafting, but I feel in Beast it is so much one-sided with the hunters versus the monster, because it is effectively all three of the hunters limiting, like, so each of the cards has a hunter action and a beast action, all on the same card. Everyone has like their own separate decks, their own separate hands during the first night.
Yeah.
When it gets to the second night and everyone's drafting, it's so much harder for the beast to actually to get the things that he needs, because all the hunters can say, okay, we're going to take all of the draftable attack cards, so you only take the runaway cards. You can only your only way of attacking wildlife or attacking villagers is with your special beast actions.
That's just I see where you're coming from. That's part of balancing out the game, because the one versus all, the one is normally really powerful anyway. Most of the separate beasts in that game have some really disgusting abilities without having cards. I want to get away from Hidden Mover for 1 second, because I want to talk about another game I really like that has mechanics and themes tied very, very well together, and also has some nice loot play to it, and that's Takenoko. That's a game where the theme is the Japanese emperor receives a Chinese panda from the Chinese emperor.
Yes, this game.
Yep. And so it's basically like a fight between the gardener for the emperor and the panda, because the gardener is trying to grow bamboo and the panda is eating the bamboo. And you as the player get to decide on if you want to like get a tile, put a new tile out, do another action of maybe putting some water out for the bamboo to grow, to move the panda to eat the bamboo, or to move the gardener to grow the. I probably already said that already. And the game is tied. The themes are really cool, and to me, the aesthetics of the game very pleasing.
Yes,
and I think everything ties very well. And another themed game for me is also like Takedo, and then the other Namiji.
Yeah,
those games really work well, like with theme and mechanics tied together.
Yeah, and I think that I'm glad you brought up aesthetic, because I think sometimes that it is possible for like a game to have kind of a boring theme when I'm just explaining to you, okay, the theme is this, you're like, oh man, that sounds boring. But then like aesthetically, when you get it on the table, be it the artwork or the pieces or the way the pieces fit together, like you have the little bamboo shoots growing up and you have the little panda that's moving around, like that, or just like the sparseness of Takedo, you know. If I tell you, like, hey, you're just going down the road and you're having a nice little journey.
You're
like
walking in some inns, eating some food.
That sounds a little boring, but when you're looking at the aesthetics of it, the way that everything's lined up, where it's not just like a big square board, it's a long rectangle. Like, of course, if you're going down a road, that's how it's going to work. And you know, and all these places are differently colored and they have a different, you know, look to them, and so it's very easy to tell like what each of them are and everything like that, and you got the little pieces moving down and all the cards.
And there is small amounts of interaction with that game, because like sometimes you want to get to the end first, because then you get to decide on what food you get first, and then it passes around the table after that.
I think the mechanics fit the theme of Namiji better than Takedo, and I say that because I've always in the back of my head, it's like, okay, he stopped at this place to paint his portrait. What really is stopping anyone else from, like, because it is worker placement across a line, and if there's not enough spots, you don't get to do that action. Right. But at the same time, it's like I could just make in real life, I could just make every single stop, like, to hell with everybody else. I could just make these stops online. Meanwhile, with Namiji, it's like if somebody gets to the fishing spot first, maybe they troll up all of the crab. Maybe they catch the best fish that's there. Maybe they've done like being there has like scared all the other fish off. That to me, there's a bit more to the theme and to the connection to the mechanics as opposed to Takedo. I think it's one of the reasons why I actually. Recently, I gave away my copy of Takedo with its expansions. I don't hate Takedo. I want to stress that there. It's just that if I'm going to get one of those to the table and I have both, I'm going to go with Namiji.
Right.
And Takedo is just going to start just gathering dust.
Well, I mean, Takedo, it all sense of purpose, it was out for a long time, and then the game designer made Namiji, and it's just like a improved.
That's Boza, isn't it?
Antoine Boza.
It's just it's an improvement.
I know he made Takedo. I'm pretty sure he made Namiji.
Yeah. It's every time I think of Antoine Boza, I also like in a tangent think of Bruno Cathala. I'm like, wait, which game did they do?
You find that a lot too, though, in other facets of a designer that makes a game that's sort of based on the first game, but improves upon a lot of different things.
Yeah,
like a different example, like we talked about already, was Gaia Project's a better version of Terra Mystica, and the theme in that situation doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It could be reskinned as pirates or something. You know?
Yeah.
I guess you could reskin Roll for the Galaxy in the same way if you wanted to.
Yeah, the roll and race for the galaxy, that's kind of a
very
that's
generic.
one of the few generic like sci-fi. Usually with sci-fi they have like some specific thing with that. But that's definitely an example of like a generic
like
sci-fi.
terraforming Mars could be a different setting for sure.
Space base instead of trucks in outer space.
Well,
it's-
Space Base, they literally have reskinned because there's a game called Bad Company, which is pretty much Space Base, except that you're building a group. It's like Ocean's 11. You're building a group of bad guys.
You're building a posse.
And when you a posse, and when you I want to play this game because I've heard good things about it because it adds like a little thing where you're like running from the cops as well. But whenever you like upgrade the whatever the card is, like you put a section in the person and they get taller. Like it looks silly.
And a lot of sci-fi games, especially the ones that are like ship based, could be reskinned as like a
I was gonna say like the like interstate truckers.
Well,
Yeah.
you could do that, or you could do like pirates or British ships from the 16, 1700s.
Yeah, if it's anything where you're doing like a pick up and deliver thing, you can
Pirate
always
space.
do like a
Alien Frontiers could be reskinned in that way.
yeah, yeah.
I want space
Strangely
base,
enough,
but
in my
pirates
brain,
now.
Jamaica can't. Jamaica is a race around the board, but it's a pirate race, and so if two ships meet one another, it's pirates against pirates, and they're trying to steal from one another. I think like maybe you could change that into an over the road race with moonshiners. I could see that too, but again, it's still
My first thought was like a Mad Max style thing where it's like
Mad Max could be there
you're
too, but-
racing around.
But to me, like the criminal part of it and the stealing, like with Mad Max, I think more of like Thunder Road, where
Yeah.
it's like you're still racing, and if you don't get far enough, you will get left behind and you're done for. But I think it's more along the lines of fighting and like killing one another.
Yeah.
Whereas Jamaica, no one ever really dies. It's just they ran a really shit race.
There's a game that I'm not a fan of, but I can't see being reskinned as anything else, and that's Galaxy Trucker. That game is so ingrained in what it is.
I love Galaxy Trucker. Someone at this table, and if he wants to speak up, he can. Hates this game. I
With a
appreciate
fiery
why.
passion.
And
I don't like
I
it.
appreciate why.
Yeah.
I appreciate why. I love, but yeah, that's a 100%er. Like to me, like you couldn't do that with anything else. And
Right.
Vlaada Chvátil is very good at instilling theme into all of his games.
Yeah.
Whether you like them or not. Like
It's gonna be it could be a boring theme though. Like it's gonna be like farming probably. Like, but he's gonna put theme in there.
Well, and make it fun. Like Tosh Kalar Arena of Legends is this abstract
Oh,
game.
I'm thinking of Rosenberg. I'm
You're
sorry.
thinking of
yeah.
Rosenberg, yeah. It's like you have two factions that are exactly the same because you one have that chess version, you have like almost pure abstract version. But then all the other like factions that you can play have certain special rules about them. One's very good at like killing legendary creatures. One is about not so much attacking, but establishing a board state where they lock everything down. I think he did a fantastic job in that, in taking what is honestly the driest of games. Abstract games are so dry. You boil almost all, if not all of the randomness out of it, and you make it a contest
Well, yeah,
of skills.
and that's a good kind of segue to talk about it with abstract games. Oftentimes those games just have no theme. Like they have zero theme whatsoever. They are just, here is the game and that is it.
Or it's bare bones.
Yeah. Now a lot of times I don't mind that because the more I think about this, the more I think I might be a mechanics forward person. Because if it doesn't have a theme or if it has a bad theme, I feel like I can overcome that if the mechanics are interesting enough to me that I'm like, I want to try out. I want to move the levers of this, damn whatever the actual theme of it is. I don't know how anybody else feels about that, but like when it comes to like an abstract game, like if I think, oh man, that's a really cool little thing that you can do with that. I don't care. Just make it look. If it has pretty colors, that's enough.
And that's one of the reasons why I like Azul. It's aesthetically pleasing and it's a fun game, and the theme does not matter.
Yeah, the Azules, Reef is another one that like it has a theme, but like the theme is just kind of like addressing
Kind of
like
there.
Yeah. But it just looks aesthetically pleasing. So it's and the mechanics are fun that I'm interested in. So like that's just in Azul you just create kind of a little pretty picture. Depending on what shapes
one you're
differently,
doing,
depending on which one that you're doing. And that's kind of all. If I didn't like the mechanics of Azul or Reef or any of those games, I wouldn't be as interested in playing them, regardless of what the theme, quote unquote theme is, because they have a theme, but they really don't. Like it's barely a thing. Ethan, how do you feel about any of this that we've talked with the abstract stuff, or
as far as like as abstract? The only thing that comes to mind is Abzul, because
Abzul is a Pokemon.
Abzul.
Azul is a board game.
Goes of the Gozeri and the Traveler has come.
Azul, that is like the only thing that I can think of that doesn't necessarily have a theme. I cannot think of any other example.
Well,
except for like checkers.
Chess, Go.
Yeah, there's all of those. And then there is all of the what's that series of abstract
there's
games?
Yinch, Gipf,
which is called the GIMP series.
Yeah, Gipf, GIPF, Yinch. Like it would
Devon. Yeah, and they are absolutely abstract. They're not even pretending to be. They are barely aesthetically pleasing. Like they are just.
Actually, you know what the game Devon is good at? Getting the tables.
Jesus.
Good. That was a little shout out to our whiskey and wrestling pals.
But then, you've got a more recent game is Onitama. It's kind of like a chess-like game, but it really has no theme.
If I don't mention Hive right now,
because
there I think there is something to be said for theme and mechanics.
There's a little bit of theme tied with mechanics there, but it could easily be reskinned to other things. I think
so, but more so than anything else. Like anything we've mentioned right there.
Yeah, I really do like Hive a lot.
I had to remember what Hive was.
And I think that's a good measure of can a game be reskinned that's the question. If you're wanting to know like how close are the mechanics with the game, just ask the question like how easily can this be reskinned?
Easily, because there are some games that have been reskinned, but they were like very deep, had a lot of like heavily tied mechanics in with the themes of the original game, which is like one of Jay's favorite games, which is like the new version's Unfathomable. The original version was Battlestar Galactica.
We are all staring at a copy of it.
That was Unfathomable right now.
Both of those games have really deep mechanics tied to the theme. They're not generic. Even
that
though
one you couldn't theme to everything. Like it has to be some kind of like boat or ship that is off away from people.
Right. And there has to be some sort of lore attached to it.
You have to have some kind of lore that's or story that brings in traders. Like you have to have these things.
You can
specifically traders that don't know they're traitors.
Right. Yeah, that's a really great even mechanic. And even though there are games and stories that can be generic when you talk about the Cthulhu mythos, there are things that are exceptional within that subgenre of media. And that goes into sci-fi as well. It can be as light as Lost in Space or as deep as The Expanse. It just depends on how hard they're going with it.
Yeah.
Playing onto we had mentioned it earlier slightly, and what Brady says, like like the difficulties when it comes to possibly reskinning a game. One that comes to mind that I don't think can ever get a reskin is like Formula D, because like
you could reskin that quite easily, and like you could make that when you're saying actually. And my apologies for interrupting. Go ahead and finish on that, because that to me is like extremely easy to reskin.
When I think of Formula D, I think of the roll to move mechanic and the increase, like the gear shift in a vehicle, of a Formula vehicle, along with the curvature of the tracks, the hazards of taking that sharp turn, that long curve, and also overheating your engine, taking damage to your vehicle. I think the increase in dice and the increased danger of wrecking your vehicle on the track, it's so tied in with what the theme of the game is.
You can replace all those cars with robots or spaceships.
So just to drill down into what in your mind is so. Are you pulled back in saying like racing as the mechanic, or racing cars, or racing?
I think
because I feel like
I think with Formula D is Formula One racing, and it's more so. I think of Formula One more so than just racing for that specific game. Like, yes, you can reskin a quote unquote racing board game as like pirate ships or spaceships or fucking horses.
Yeah.
But like specifically Formula Racing, Formula D, I don't think you can slap like SpongeBob onto that, or change the theme while also having different mechanics with what you're specifically doing.
Yeah. I get your argument. I feel like as long as you are making some, like, you could kind of make that to where you're racing almost anything, in my opinion. But I do think that is like the mechanics do kind of strongly fit with it.
They do fit. They do fit with the game for sure.
And they have thought about a lot of things with that. I don't agree with that, but I see where you're coming from at the very least. But I do feel like you can't change that to anything but racing. Like it has to be a racing game.
Yeah.
But I think that's really with most racing games. That's how it has to be. But yeah, I get where you're coming from. I don't agree with that. But
and I could be the only thinker in this.
Yeah. That's okay. So I've kind of talked about how I feel like I am probably a mechanics first person. So how do the rest of y'all? How do y'all feel about mechanics versus theme? Are you a themes first person, or are you more of a this mechanic is interesting to me, let me try that out?
I'm thoroughly more like, again, my first consideration is how good is the primary loop. If I'm sitting down to play the game, I exceptionally love everything Battlestar Galactica, the remake series. I thought it was some of the best acting we've seen. I think it progressed the notion of serialized storytelling on American television. I think there's a lot that I really love about Battlestar Galactica. If that game was that long, because you can clock in a good 3-hour game for Battlestar Galactica. I don't care if I'm Adama or President Roslin or Starbuck, whoever I'm playing is. If I have to play a game of that is 3 hours long and it is dog shit fucking tiring, or it's just like it's the same choice every time because there's no shift to where I'm not running from a dominant strategy, or I don't have to change my strategy because it's so dominant it never runs out. Like if I had to play Battlestar Galactica Nemesis, I would lose my fucking mind. Because a long game with a good theme that doesn't play well is an outright no. That's an outright no for me. So yeah, no, I'm 100% in the mechanics camp, and like I said, it's the first consideration for me. Is this fun to play? And then after that, does the theme match with the mechanics on it? If the theme matches with the mechanics, but the mechanics are me having to spin a top 100 times to get 1 point, and I need 100 points, no, get that away from me.
Yeah, for me, it's always mechanics. The theme and the aesthetics of the game It's like, back in the day of like, deciding on what movie you wanted to rent. I would look at the box, but then I would read the back of it.
I think that's a good way for how I do it, because the theme might get me to go, oh, let me look at this. But then if I turn it around,
and then you do the research on
if I watch a review of it and what their little rundown doesn't interest me, I'm just like, okay, I don't care.
Right. If Roll for the Galaxy didn't have the mechanics I enjoyed so much, and the game and the loops that I enjoy so much, then I wouldn't play it, and the theme wouldn't matter. Like, I love sci-fi, but it wouldn't matter at all. The theme wouldn't matter at all if, kind of piggybacking off what Jay said, if there wasn't, the fun factor wasn't there, then I wouldn't be, enjoying it as much. And I'm sure there are plenty of people that will play certain games just because the aesthetics and the theme of the game is very strong. But maybe the mechanics aren't as strong as the theme. But for me, like, it was mentioned earlier, one of the best games where the theme and the fun factor and everything ties together is like the Camelot game, the Shadows over the Camelot, or whatever it's called.
Yeah,
that game's amazing in all aspects of all the things we've been talking about.
Yeah, the idea of the trader fits so well with like the Arthur,
and you have like the sword and the lady in the lake, and you have like all these
the search for the Holy Grail.
You have the search for the Holy Grail. You have all these other factors,
and it's the notion. It's about sacrifice. You have to give up cards in your hand. You have to go to some place and maybe like take damage for doing it in order to be able to advance the agenda of the good. Meanwhile, on the evil side of things is you're faking sacrifice. You are. It's like,
you have to go through the motions of that. Yeah,
you have to make things like, it's like I've almost beat the Black Knight. Oh God, I don't have the cards. I have to go back to Camelot. You've wasted 3 turns. And what's going on? Wait a minute, maybe maybe you didn't understand and appreciate what the hell was going on there.
Right.
There's mechanics play in with the theme there, but they are fun mechanics, and it's a solid theme, and they work and they bridge well together. I'll say this, if one is like kind of hurting the theme, like I mentioned Beast earlier, the drafting thing I think is interesting. I think it is fun. I think and I think it's done very solidly, but it's not necessarily how I would interpolate that in the abstraction of that kind of kind of game. So like Beast will always be a fun game and a favorite game of mine, because I'm glad I'm and it, sunk cost fallacy, I did buy it. So there's also a matter of put skin in the game for it, but it's never going to be like one of my top tier like hidden movement games, because I think Letters does it so much better. I think Fury of Dracula does it so much better. I think the original that kicked it all off, Scotland Yard, which I have a copy of and we haven't played.
We need to,
and I would like everybody to see where this genre kind of originated
I
from.
want to say one more thing before we go to whatever we're going to go to on this, which we should be wrapping up soon. Is a game that like ties in theme, mechanics, fun factor. It's all there, and that's the Return to Dark Tower, man.
Yeah.
Yes. It is a game that I love owning, and is probably also another one of those that if I had to do a top 10, I would be in my top 10. I would never recommend that game to a single person, because now the box I think is like 180 just for the base box. There is something also to be said. Like in my head, I'm also like, there's a third thing that honestly it's not even tangential. It's a separate discussion here. Rising Sun. Another game that could easily be in my top 10.
Right.
I would never suggest anybody buy Rising Sun unless you've already gotten it on Kickstarter, because all of the accoutrement that comes with that is north of $300.
Right.
And it's even more than that now because of time. It's not available. Like Gen Con just happened. At Gen Con, Simon will actually will sell you some of the like the extra stuff that's that. But just the box off the wall, like I've played not just the box off the wall, but everything else that comes with it, and it so enriches that game. And I use the word rich specifically because it's a huge cash investment. Same thing for Return to Dark Tower.
Sure. But the theme and the mechanics tie in very well together.
You drop skulls down a hole and then evil things happen. Yes, it's fucking amazing.
And as well as like I don't know about Blood Rage. I know Rising Sun for sure, like the themes and the mechanics kind of
That's another one where I don't get your Vikings. Why would you be drafting?
right.
The drafting, yeah. But see, that's one of the things where I'm to a point where like I don't have to have every single mechanic in the game fit with, with what's happening in the game.
Right.
To be honest, until you brought it up, Jay, it never even crossed my mind to figure out like, okay, why in the game of Beast are we drafting with everybody? I was just like, oh, that's a cool mechanic for a hidden movement game.
Right.
Right.
And for me, I think honestly, it's aesthetics more than even theme.
Mm-hmm.
If it aesthetically looks pleasing, like if it can be a dry, boring game, but if it has if it just looks pretty and I like the mechanics, that's kind of enough for me.
Right, because you're gonna be looking at it for like 2 hours.
Now, then you have like the publisher Splotter, who will make the heaviest, most complicated games, and they look like dog shit. They look like they have a game called Food Chain Magnet, and it's about running food chains.
They're doing an updated version that looks better.
I've heard this, and everybody is talking about like, oh my god, it's an updated version, and they're improving that. Like it looks just like
they literally could have kept the same fucking game. Like this rules down to the same thing, and they just made that look a 10% better. People would be raving about it. And it just is
like, okay, these are just the chits are just like white with numbers on them, and then like everything is just kind of a white board that looks like it's just a fucking piece of paper that you unfold with squares on it. And
it looks like the video game Rogue. Yeah. Like it looks just like a dungeon for some reason that you have to go. And no, you're building a food empire.
So for that one, even though there might be mechanics, and I haven't really and really and truly like the aesthetics turn me off so much that like I haven't even like looked at it. But even if the mechanics were like really good, I'm not going to be interested in playing that.
Right.
But I was thinking about this thing, and I guess this is something that we can kind of close it in. Weirdly enough, like what we would call the most boring games, like Food Chain Magnet, like the things that Splotter makes, like the 18xx games, which are really long, complicated, like stock and trade and train games, are like have some of what we would call the most boring quote unquote games have like the most hardcore following. Like there are people where they're not board gamers, they play 18xx games and they just play them over and over and over, and that's what they do. You know, there are people who we're going to get together and we're going to play this Splotter game, and we're just going to play it over and over and over again.
There is the group that plays Twilight Imperium.
Well, Twilight Imperium, that's one thing, but that is also a pretty thematic game. Like the theme I think fits pretty well with the game. I'm talking about like these games, not these games that are just long and complicated. These games that are long and complicated, and to outsiders, we would say this looks boring as shit.
Ethan, buy and sell stocks for 3 hours. Does that sound fun to you?
Just type in 18xx game and look at any of those games and tell me that you would be interested in playing those.
The number 18?
18 and then XX and then board game. But like you have people who will fight you if you say that these are shit games. Like they will like they have, it is so weird that like some of these games have the most hardcore following, and to a lot of outsiders we're just like, oh my god, this looks so fucking boring. And I think that's a weird. I really don't even have much to. You look at.
How dare you compare them to Twilight Imperium? How dare you?
I didn't know what this was.
Exactly.
Okay?
In ignorance, you have done horrible
things. And these are like almost insulated. Like a lot of people like who play board games on the regular don't even know about some of these games.
Yeah, I've never heard of it.
So like this insular community of they just play these fucking games, and it's very. I wish I would have thought of this. I really just thought of this when we were talking this out, but I wish I would have thought of this earlier so I could do maybe some research about like why these games that seem so boring have just like the most hardcore. And it's the same thing with like if anybody who doesn't know how to play Go, you're looking at Go, and that looks like the most boring shit ever. But they are like hardcore people. Same thing with chess. Chess can be like the most boring thing ever. But you have the hardcore people who they think that's the only thing that's worth playing.
Sure.
It's a very interesting phenomenon. Maybe one day I could do research and see why that is. But it is very weird because like they are more gung-ho about these games than we are about any of the most thematic games.
Right. Hey, Ethan, quick, reskin, ready, set, bet. Go.
Can't.
Okay.
Not even going to attempt that.
You could do that with cars.
Yeah.
They did that. There was another auction game, a very famous auction game for sale, and they reskinned it to like I think instead of buying property, you're buying cars. It would just have to be an auction game,
Right?
But yeah. So yeah,
Before we finish up, because I think we've all answered the question except Ethan. Ethan, for you, is it mechanics or is it theme? What draws you in?
I think they have to go hand in hand. I can go either or, but I like looking for a perfect harmony when it comes to the two. And the last board game I will mention with this, it will be Western Legends. You are a cowboy.
Yeah.
The mechanics in the game is you doing cowboy shit.
I'm sorry. The minute you are a cowboy on a steel horse you ride, and I was like, if he goes there, I need that. you okay?
Yes, I wasn't expecting that.
Wait a minute. I've never said anything funny. Okay, moving on.
Yes, Western Legends handshake
Yeah.
theme and mechanics.
that is
Right.
one that is super difficult. You could do like a Grand Theft Auto style thing where it's but even then, like you would have to cut a lot of shit.
Yes,
out.
You would have to
but at the same
change some
time,
stuff.
I don't want anyone touching this because of how integrated all of it flows together.
Oh yeah.
I don't want anyone touching and ruining
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, I think that one is a very good example of like strong theme
Theme
with
to mechanics.
Yeah, even like what your character, what their special power is.
The Pinkerton.
You flip
Little
it
guys
around
again.
and you read who that person, even if you don't know who that person is.
Right.
Like if you get Doc Holliday, you're like, oh, and you know about Doc Holliday. Oh, that fits Doc Holliday. Billy the Kid. That sounds like something Billy the Kid would do.
Yep.
You know?
The Pinkerton smash into a house and take all the Magic the Gathering cards.
Yeah.
I feel the same way about Takanoku. That game, I can't see you reskinning that in anything else.
It would be difficult for that one. Because I think you could probably make the statement that any game pretty much can be rethemed. It's just how much do you have to change?
How easy is it?
How
going back to
easy
what we
is
were
it?
talking about earlier.
Not just necessarily can you reskin it,
Right.
Because when you get down to it, you could probably do it with just about anything. And there's been
Right.
surprise, like Restoration Games has made a living off of doing that,
Right.
taking an old game and reskinning it to something else.
Still waiting for
oftentimes.
Omega Virus, goddammit.
Yeah.
I want to play it.
But yeah. So hopefully we have interested you and we have not bored you too much with this talk of boring.
Have the
games.
mechanics of this podcast got in the way of the theme of it tonight?
Yeah. Yeah.
Let us
write
know.
let us
Travelers
know.
on the omnibus at gmail.com.
How many different versions of Monopoly do you own?
Yeah.
Polls on Spotify.
it's more
Don't
than-
buy Jurassic Park Monopoly.
If it's more than 0,
I urge you, get your refund or burn it.
if it's more than 0, you can just stop listening. It's fine. It's fine. I'll say it.
I'll second it.
I'll third it.
Yeah.
To be fair, I didn't hear what you were saying.
I said if you own more, if the versions of Monopoly that you own is more than 0, you can just stop while listening. It's fine. How many versions do y'all own, Ethan?
You got that book. You have that
got
book.
2.
You have that book
It's-
version, which I kind of like just for the aesthetic on the wall.
The Burke version, and I got Bianca a Sailor Moon Monopoly for her
Okay,
birthday.
I can say that's okay.
We might have to have a talk after this.
Who really wanted the Sailor Moon Monopoly?
Fighting
You could, like,
evil by
Moving
moonlight.
on.
You can like Sailor Moon. It's
Winning
okay.
love by daylight.
Never seen Sailor Moon.
Oh,
Never
wow.
lost
Never.
in a real
That's
fight.
right. You're
She
a little
is
bit
the
too
one
young
named
for.
Sailor Moon.
You're a little bit too young to have seen it on after school on
On
Toonam.
TV.
So yeah, we're rolling into the station. I don't even know what to say with that. You're gonna have to cut all this too.
It's been cut, so we
Yeah.
don't have to worry about it.
Damn. Somebody give
Jason
us.
Holder and Michael Hill.
Speed run us,
They,
please.
they host a show called Whiskey and Wrestling. Give them a listen. They talk about whiskey and wrestling. They're on all the podcasts.
Bearded Drum, Stephen Nelson II, Jarrett Taylor, drum stuff.
The man to my right, Jody Lee Kite, Fearology, horror themes, video games.
Oh, we're adding his middle name now.
Yeah,
Damn.
he's an assassin.
You called him out by his whole name, as the kids say.
Fearology, 15 passwords, Spotify.
He thumbs up that. That was very good.
Oh man.
Christopher Vega, Brandon Scott Tanner, and Brandon Smith with the completed podcast. Magic the Gathering, competitive stuff, road stories, interviews with pros. Check them out all on major channels.
Speaking about Magic the Gathering, you can get all your Magic the Gathering Lorcana needs at Big Darb Gaming in lovely Mississippi.
Well, it is Mississippi.
It is Goshen, Mississippi. Cameron Spanier, God Emperor Gaming.
Yeah.
Yes.
They got new Magic and new Lorcana. Check
New
them out.
puzzles and shit. And
Yeah.
14,000 copies
No,
of
just the
that
same.
one dice game.
Yeah,
And-
if you want Astro Dice, or
Asteroid Dice.
Asteroid Dice.
I thought it was just Astro Dice.
No, it's Asteroid Dice.
Come in and ask them which one it is.
Look at it.
There are 6 different versions
they've
of the
got
game.
8 versions of
They
it.
got the
Yeah.
limited edition version where all of the dice are charcoal black.
Yeah, I saw that.
There
And
are
you,
more
and you throw them.
There are more copies of that game than there are board gamers in the store.
That is true.
This is a really good promo that they didn't pay us for.
It just reminds me when they got all those Simpsons code names.
Space Base, my
Space
guy.
Base.
Oh man.
28
There were-
copies of Space
Yeah,
Base.
I was gonna say there were 30 copies.
Because the original owner bought 14 copies, forgot that he bought 14 copies, and
bought
put in an order for
14 more.
14 more copies.
Yeah,
Damn.
Don't worry, for every 14 he bought, he got a free one. So there were actually 30. But we don't talk about the free copies, just the 28
we
he
don't
paid
talk
for.
about Space Base. No.
Oh Jesus.
Your own personal space base.
Okay.
Reach out and touch space base.
Before we get sued by Depeche Mode, let's get out
And
of here.
Disney.
I'm more worried about Depeche Mode, to be honest.
They
Don't
are.
ask me why.
Disney sues it. But
That's-
Depeche Mode sues somebody. Where the fuck did that come
Yeah,
from?
right.
Yeah, comes out of nowhere.
Randy Orton.
Let's just get the fuck out of here. I'm Bray Davis.
Jody Kite.
Ethan Skinner.
James McCarthy.
We'll leave the light on for you.
Oh,
Hit it. Hit the button.
I don't know what the fuck. What does that
Okay.
mean?
That.
He was waiting for the so long farewell.
Yeah, so yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that we had an ending
I
thing
didn't
now.
know either. Okay.
The show's over for 2 of us.
Yeah.
They do
Yeah.
this every week.
Yeah,
so,
There you go.
I'm gonna go ahead.
How do you not like Sailor Moon?
I didn't say I didn't like it. I just said
I didn't say
I've
you
never
didn't
watched
like.
it.
Is that you just didn't not like it? Like, by moonlight,
God, we're gonna get-
winning love by daylight,
we're gonna get sued by Japan now.
never running from a real fight.
To be fair, they're still recovering from the earthquake.